Yes. If you haven't signed in, please sign in over here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tina Polsky. I am a state representative for District 81. Most of you probably live there. I have the area west of the Turnpike, from Boca to Lake Worth, and then the 3 cities in the Glades. So any of you who live Boca Rio, heading west towards here, 441, then you're in my district. And so welcome. We decided to have this meeting because we started receiving a lot of calls, even back in the summer, about the Turnpike expansion and Turnpike noise, and we couldn't answer your questions. So it took us some time, but we decided to also do it when we thought a lot of residents were back in town and we would be able to get the folks who work for the Turnpike to be able to come and answer your questions. So I'm going to introduce them. My one request, I know it's warm in here, I know we ran out of chairs, this is a very popular topic. My one request is you save your questions for the end. We'll have plenty of time for questions. I wanted to introduce Teresa Price and Todd Bogner, who the project manager and the senior environmental scientist. They work for the main contractor who's doing this Turnpike expansion. There are also employees here from the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT. Thank you. So they can also answer questions directly related to the Turnpike, aside from the Turnpike project that's going on. And I just ask for your attention, and again, questions at the end. We'll have plenty of time to answer them, but let's get through the presentation because many of your questions will be answered. I have a lot of material up here with my phone number, email, etc. If you ever have any questions that I can help you with through the state, please let me know. I represent you from the state, not the federal government, but happy to help direct you in any way that I can. We're here for you. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Teresa Price.
Thank you, Representative Polsky. We are glad to be here again. So we are a contractor, and we're a general engineering contractor hired by the Turnpike, and our responsibility is that we manage the program. And there's also contractors that build the actual projects, but we're here to manage the contract. I'm going to just let you know who else is in the room. So Jasmine Alamani, she is a project manager with my company, Atkins. Todd, Jasmine, and I are with Atkins, and we're on that GEC team. And then we have Carol Scott, who's with our planning department with the Florida Turnpike. Vicki Williams, that is with the planning department as well. And then Kim Sampson, who is in our traffic group, a part of another consultant team that helps from a traffic standpoint, our traffic studies that we do. So again, we're here to just kind of give you project information of what's happening in West Palm Beach County, and then we're going to turn it over to Todd, and he's going to actually get into the details as far as our noise modeling is concerned. So just kind of big topics, what we're going to talk about, kind of help you understand our project development process, where the projects are that we're going to talk about tonight at a high level, and then what are existing conditions currently, and then improvements that are under design, and then other projects that you've already seen construction that's underway and might have thought that, hey, the widening project, the main project is coming through, and we're going to talk about the time frame of those projects, and then Todd's going to talk about the noise process, and then as promised, we will answer your questions that you have to the best of our ability. If we do not have those answers tonight, we promise that we will follow up with you after the meeting. And before I get started, I just wanted to really thank Ms. Terry. She's been great to coordinate with just setting this all up. So can you all give her a round of applause for me, please? Yeah, pleasure to work with. All right, so this flow diagram that we have before you, we just kind of want you to understand that there really is a process that we go through, the Turnpike goes through. And before we start any project, we go through each of these steps. And the first step being planning. And so we look at,
Go in the corner.
everybody good? Does she need a chair? She's gonna sit, I'll sit on there.
Right around.
All right, there we go. All right, fantastic. All right. So we start from a planning standpoint, looking at the needs that are out there and just even determining the feasibility of whether or not a project should go forth or not. Does it make sense or not? So there's different elements and components of that. Once the decision is made that we do think that this is an improvement that we do need to look at, Then we go to the next step, which is the project development and environmental process, which is a study that's actually done, and it's often titled PD&E. And some of you may have heard that terminology and not really understood what it means. So we're talking about developing the project and also looking at how is it going to impact the environment and how do we need to mitigate those impacts. And there's a public involvement process during that PD&E study where we meet with stakeholders such as yourself, we talk about what we're considering, and then we at the end of that come up with a preferred alternative. So this is what we're recommending that we want to build. So for the projects that we're going to discuss tonight, that process has actually already taken place. And there's been 2 PD&E studies, one that was done in October, and that one was from Atlantic Avenue to Lantana, and that was actually for an 8-lane widening. And then in 2010, June of 2010, we did a study from Sawgrass to Atlantic Avenue, and again, that was for an 8-lane widening project. After those projects were done, and as we were looking at how is the system growing, what are certain things that we need to do, we're looking at our traffic trends, and a 2017 traffic trend report, that's when the Turnpike determined that we don't need to build an 8-lane, we actually need to build a 10-lane widening project, right? Because we don't want to get out there starting to build something and have to build something totally different than that project. So in 2017, that's when the decision was made to go from an 8-lane to a 10-lane widening. And so you all might be asking the question, well, we're getting ready to enter the 2020, how come you haven't been out there yet? And so what we've really been doing in the last couple of years is we've been talking with the utility and agencies and coordinating with them, because I'm going to show you an existing typical section. There's a lot of constraints. Lake Worth Drainage District is on the east and the west side. We've got AT&T. We've also got FGT that's running in there as well. And so a lot of different utilities and agencies that we need to coordinate and really come up with the right design criteria. So that's kind of, after the PD&E process, this is what has happened. So now where we are, after we get our study done, we've had the public hearing, we say, okay, this is what we want to build. We then go to the next step, which is design. We then nail down that final design criteria. We look at the criteria, we look at the constraints that we have, and how can we fit this 10-lane widening project within the right-of-way that the department that the Turnpike has. And as we're designing, then we determine, do we need more right-of-way or do we not need more right-of-way? And then all of that takes place. We have public meetings so that we let you all know if there's going to be right-of-way that needs to be acquired. And then after we get through the final design, we go through a bidding process. We select a construction contractor to build the project. Then we go through to construction. Sometimes it's a few months, sometimes it's multiple years. These projects will be multiple years that we're going to talk to you about tonight. And then after we've constructed everything, we then have to maintain the system, kind of like how we maintain our homes, we maintain our cars. That's the same thing that the Turnpike has to do as well. So it's just not like, hey, we want to do this project. There's really a strenuous process that the DOT has to follow according to their policies and procedures, and which is actually mandated by the law. All right, so tonight we're talking to you as far as what are the projects that are happening within Palm Beach County. So I'm going to start from the north and I'm going to head down to the south. And so our first, our widening project is actually 1 mile north of Lantana Road. So it's from State Road 7 to 1 mile north of Indiana Town Road. So that design is underway. And the construction, the funding for the construction is actually outside of our 5-year work program. So we've got money for design that we're currently using, and it's not to say that we don't have construction funding, but it's just not in our 5-year program that is actually published. The next project is from Okeechobee Boulevard to State Road 710. And again, that design began it's going to begin in our fiscal year 21, which is calendar year 2020, and then 21. So our fiscal year runs from July to June, okay? So when I'm telling you, as far as we're talking fiscal, not calendar year, and then our construction for that, again, is gonna be in fiscal year 2024. Our next widening project is West Palm Beach Service Plaza to Okeechobee Boulevard, and that design is actually underway. And that construction is going to happen in fiscal year 2023, which will be calendar year 22-23. And then from there, we've got north of Boulevard Beach to Lake Worth, Road. That construction is actually underway and it's anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2024. And then we have from north of Atlantic Boulevard to Boynton Beach Boulevard, that design is underway. Our construction funding is outside of the 5-year work program, which is going to be the same for the next 2 projects, which is basically from north of Glades Road to north of Atlantic Avenue, and then from the Palm Beach County line to Glades Road. And tonight we're going to focus on the last 3 projects that I've got highlighted here in the red box. So we're going to give you a little bit more information regarding to the status of where those projects are. So here this is what we call a typical section. So basically we're cutting the road in half and we're looking at it north, okay? And so this is showing the 6-lane widening that you all are very familiar with. And if you look, it shows the constraints that we have to work in, meaning the canal, Lake Worth Drainage District, both on the west and on the east side. We also have ITS, we have AT&T, and we have the Florida Gas transmission. So FGT, which is an 18-inch and a 24-inch line. In order for you all to have the gas that you need, it's actually running on the east side of the Turnpike. And so we have to take all of this into consideration when we talk about how are we going to fit these additional lanes in that we're now saying that we need along the Turnpike. All right, so I'm going to basically talk through each project. So the first project, and I'm starting now, I'm going to start from the south and I'm going to work up. So those 3 projects that were in the red box that I showed you a few slides ago. The first project is FPID. So this is our financial purpose ID. So from a standpoint of with the Turnpike, every project has to have has to have a number so that we can keep track of funding and everything associated with the project. And so from basically Palm Beach County line to north of Glades Road, that FPID is 418214-1. So again, we're doing a 10-lane widening road, and that design is underway. And I'm the project manager for this project right here. That design is underway. So we did our consultant negotiations through the summer, and they've actually started the process of looking at how can we fit these 10 lanes within the constraints that we have. There are going to be interchange improvements. And then we've started that utility coordination. So we've had multiple meetings with Lake Worth Drainage District, and we've had multiple meetings with the Florida Gas Transmission. So to make sure that what we're proposing is acceptable to them, because we have to actually encroach into their right-of-way, and we may have to do some relocation of certain items in order for the project to happen. So we're talking about design criteria and trying to figure out what's the best way that we can get our project within the constraints that we have. A major interchange improvement, which hopefully you all will be excited about, is our Glades Road interchange, right? We know that it's very congested. And so actually the PD&E study, so remember that was the step 2 of the process that we talked about. The Glades Road interchange PD&E study has actually started in October, and that PD&E study is actually going to run concurrent with the design that is underway. And so we're coordinating very closely with them, and then you all will be getting some information relative to the public. There's going to be a kind of a kickoff newsletter that's going to probably come out at the beginning of the year, and then we'll have a public workshop. So you all will very much have the opportunity to come in to see what solutions that we are presenting as far as how we can make that interchange work better and help the traffic congestion that is there at the Glades Road. And then for the Mainline widening project, so there's a lot of things that are going on before the actual widening of the Turnpike. The design is going along, and that's going to take approximately 2 years. So we're thinking June of 2021. We then have to submit our plans to FGT, Lake Worth Drainage District, Palm Beach County, all of these different entities, and we've got to get concurrence on our plans that everyone's in agreement of, hey, this is what we're going to build. So that's going to take a couple of years to do that, and then we will start meeting with the public as far as once we all agree that yes, this is the design that we feel that is sufficient to meet the needs that are out there. And that public information meeting is tentatively, we're looking at spring of 2022. So we're talking, 2 years before we would come to the public and present what our proposed design is for this portion of the project. So our second widening project, so this would be the second one in the red box. And that FPID is 417132-1. And that's from north of Glades Road to north of Atlantic Avenue. Ms. Jasmine is the project manager for that project. And again, a 10-lane widening. It's going to be a 10-lane widening, meaning that we're going to have 5 lanes going north, 5 lanes going south. The design is underway, so we're working concurrently together. There will be interchange improvements as far as the ramps are concerned at Atlantic Avenue. And then the utility and the agency coordinating has taken place, and we've really been talking about all of these projects with them at the same time. And then again, a public informational meeting is anticipated in the spring of 2022. Our last project is FPID 437169-1, and this is from north of Atlantic Avenue to north of Boynton Beach Boulevard. Again, it's going to be a 10-lane widening. The design is underway. There will be interchange improvements to the Boynton Beach Boulevard interchange to really help from a safety standpoint as far as the exit and the entrance ramps, on and off ramps to the Turnpike at Boynton Beach Boulevard. And again, we have been coordinating with the utility and the agencies relative to this proposed project, and we're anticipating that a public informational meeting will be held in spring of 2022. So other projects that are happening within the corridor. So our all-electronic tolling project that is underway. So this means that the Turnpike is getting to the point of where cash will not be, will no longer be an option, but it'll be a toll by plate. We're a toll by plate state. And it actually, doing all electronic tolling, it helps with the efficiency of how we can get traffic moving on and off of the Turnpike. And so we have, that project is 4293-3394-4, and it's 5C. And it is actually where you see on where it's showing Atlantic Boulevard, Boynton Beach Boulevard, Glades Road, where we're actually putting in those all electronic tolling systems in those locations. That construction is actually started in November and anticipated to end in spring of 2021. We've had a resurfacing of the Turnpike, and that's from mileposts 81 to 87. And that construction began in the fall of this year, so you all have actually seen where we've done some resurfacing on the Turnpike, anticipating that it's going to end in summer of 2022. And that's the red, if you guys can see that red second line, the big long red line, that's where that resurfacing project is. And then our AET phase 8, that's the top part where the Latana Toll Plaza and other areas identified. That project is going to be kicking off this month and going through the winter of 2023. And then what we call our all-electronic tolling conversion is going to actually happen in the winter of 2021. So that's when we will pretty much be a cashless system by 2021. And then some future projects that are coming up are what we're calling our transportation systems management and operation, adding auxiliary lanes. So we're going to actually add some capacity to the Turnpike before the widening projects come out, because as we stated, our construction is outside of our 5-year work program. And so in order to help, move the traffic better, we've got some auxiliary, adding the TSMO and add auxiliary lanes, which will take place. We're going to start that design in the fall of 2021. And that's actually fiscal year, so it'll be fall of 2020 when we'll start that construction, and then our construction will be anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2024. So that's kind of where we are from a design standpoint of the projects. And then Todd's going to come and talk about the noise modeling process.
Good evening. Before I discuss the noise that's specific to the projects, before I talk about the noise that's specific to these projects, we have a noise video that explains the process that we'd like to show for you.
There it goes.
Florida is one of the nation's fastest growing states, both in population and employment. People come here to live, work, and play. More businesses, visitors, and residents require a robust transportation system with enough capacity to easily move all those people and goods where they need to go. To do this, the Florida Department of Transportation, or FDOT, works to help meet the state's increasing transportation needs. We are committed to providing a safe transportation system that ensures the mobility of people and goods, enhances economic prosperity, and preserves the quality of our communities and environment. As we evaluate transportation options, we consider the noise impacts associated with growth. When we study the impacts of noise, we use the same noise evaluation process for each project. There is a state and federally approved noise analysis approach that we use to determine impacts and whether noise walls are feasible and reasonable so that they meet the FDOT requirements. This evaluation helps determine if adding a noise wall would be an effective use of transportation funding. This process is used throughout all 50 states and usually starts during the early project development phase, well before construction. We conduct a noise study when we are building a new highway or making significant changes to an existing one, such as the addition of a new traffic lane or a major shift of the roadway alignment. During the noise analysis, we identify noise-sensitive areas closest to the roadway. Our traffic engineers predict future traffic volumes a project may add to the roads. We enter existing traffic and forecasted future traffic into the Federal Highway Administration's, or FHWA's, traffic noise model, along with natural and constructed features in the area. This model is used to determine what future noise levels may be in comparison to existing noise levels to calculate noise impacts. To accurately predict each project's traffic noise, we collect sample field measurements of existing noise to validate that the model is working accurately for each project. When determining if a noise wall is a feasible and reasonable solution, we consider several variables. First, we evaluate if the noise wall will reduce future traffic noise for impacted areas. The governing standards for this determination is to achieve a benefit of a 5 decibel reduction for 2 impacted receptors and a 7 decibel reduction for 1 benefited receptor. Then we calculate the cost of building the noise wall per FDOT cost criteria. Next, we determine if it is possible to be constructed in the location that would provide the noise reduction benefit. Finally, we make sure that the property owners and residents actually want a noise wall. As you can see, there is a lot that goes into the decision to construct a noise wall. A few things to note about this process. We know that large construction projects often are noisy, but in this process, construction noise is not considered as part of the noise study, only the noise resulting from the traffic of a completed highway project. Not all highway traffic noise goes away with the construction of a noise wall. In fact, the biggest noise reduction is observed directly behind the wall. And finally, noise-sensitive land uses, such as homes, that are permitted for construction after the project development and environment study is approved, also known as the date of public knowledge, will not be considered in future phases of the project. By following this established policy, we are able to make fair and informed decisions regarding increased noise and seek balanced solutions that work for the community. As Florida continues to grow, we will work to reduce the sounds of growth and progress while continuing to preserve the quality of our environment and communities.
Okay, so the noise studies were included. So the noise studies were included during the PD&E studies that Teresa had mentioned earlier. Generally, after the PD&E study, noise is reevaluated during the design phase to make sure that when the project when the design has come further along, that the noise studies identified in the PD&E still work. So the design projects number 1 and 2 were the 2010 PD&E study from Sawgrass Expressway to Atlantic Avenue. The design project number 3 was the 2002 PD&E study from Atlantic Avenue to the Lantana Toll Plaza. Both PD&E studies were for the widening to 8 lanes.
So you can speak a little larger.
Gotcha. So both of the PD&E studies were for widening to 8 lanes. Now, as described in the noise video, normally at the end of the PD&E study, anybody that comes afterward is not included during the design phase. However, since this project is going to 10 lanes, we are going to reevaluate everybody that's there right now. So what we'll do is the date of public knowledge is basically going to be a reset. So when we reevaluate this project for the 10 lanes, we are going to look at everybody that's there now that's along the Turnpike up until the time that reevaluation is completed. So all residences that have building permits prior to this new reset date of public knowledge are going to be included in the noise study. Noise sensitive areas such as residences that are predicted to be above 66 decibel in the design year will be considered impacted. So noise barriers are going to be evaluated for all of those residences that are impacted. Noise barriers that meet functional and cost criteria as described in the video will move forward in the design to construction.
So where are we at now? So our next steps, we're going to continue with our design efforts. So as we talk about, our design consultants are working, we're coordinating with the utilities and the agencies to actually get to an agreeable design for that 10-lane widening. Those coordination efforts are still underway, and then we will then actually have our public informational meeting in spring of 2022. So that's when you get that notice, that's when you'll be able to see actually what we are proposing, because we can't show you anything yet because we haven't come to an agreement with the utilities. I think you would be kind of upset if I showed you something tonight and then 2 years later I come back and say, ha, I caught you. I'm going to show you something different. And so we're going through that coordination process, and as soon as we get to an agreement, that's when we'll have our public informational meeting. We'll go through the PD&E reevaluation for the design changes to 10 lanes. That's when that reset date, as far as when the noise modeling will take place, that will then occur, and then we'll determine the noise walls that are going to be needed and constructed as a part of the project. And then our public hearing date will be determined, because we've got to get through all of this work first, see where everything is, and then we will then determine a public hearing. And the public hearing is when you can actually record, yes, I'm for the project, no, I'm not for the project, and this is why I am, and this is why I am not. And it's actually where we're going on public record stating this is the project that we intend to construct. So you again will have another opportunity after the public informational meeting at the hearing, where we'll display everything. We'll let you know if we're intending to acquire land or not, what those parcels are going to be. They'll be shown on displays. You'll have all of that information in order for you to determine, hey, am I for this project or am I not for this project? And then you will be able to voice that opinion at the public hearing dates. All right, so at this time, so just so that you know, again, contact person. So I'm Teresa Price, and I'm the project manager from Palm Beach County line to north of Glades Road. So if you have any questions regarding that project, you can call me. And then Jasmine Alamani, she is the one that's responsible from north of Glades Road all the way up to North Boynton Beach Boulevard. So there's 2 separate projects. If you remember, we talked about 3 widening projects. And then for noise-specific questions, Todd is the expert. And so again, if you can't get a hold of Todd, you can get a hold of us and we'll track him down and tell him to give you a call back. All right, well, no, he's not that kind of a guy. All right. Okay, so this is what okay, I got you. So let's be respectful. I promise you we're gonna get to everybody. So we're gonna take the mic. We're gonna hand you the mic. You can ask the question, all right? And then we'll do our best to answer. Yes, we can. If you cannot hear us without the mic, then
Okay.
we'll say it louder.
Hi. Todd and I met
Can't hear
last...
you.
I don't know if this is on.
Hello.
Hello.
Close to the mouth.
Let me start singing. I'd like to sing a song right now. Todd, we met last year and talked about the fact that our noise level where we live is about 65.
Where do you live?
We live in Bellagio, in Lake Worth, that's where CD Way. And it was about 65.5 at our houses. Now, that was with the current 2 lanes. So it's going to be more if you go to 8 lanes. It's going to be much more if you eventually go to 10 lanes. And we talked about my neighbor just sold her house after 3 years for $100,000 less than the market value of the house. So we talked about all those things. This is going to impact us greatly. So will there be reconsideration of putting some kind of noise barrier to protect the community?
So once this design moves forward to the 10 lanes, we're reevaluating the entire corridor for these projects. So we are going to build a model that has 10 lanes, the 10 lanes in it, where it's actually going to go in relationship to your homes. We're going to put all of the what we call receptors, which will be the residences, with any features. So if your neighborhood has a wall, a concrete wall, or a berm in front of it, that will all be put into the model, and with the design year traffic, and we will run it, and we will see if there are impacts. Where there are impacts, we will look at noise walls to mitigate those impacts. What we try to do is we try to do what's called getting a benefit. A benefit is anybody that receives a 5 decibel reduction over what the condition will be. So we will try to get benefits for those. There will be additional benefited people who are not impacted. So those that are not above 66, if they get a 5 decibel reduction, they're considered a benefited receptor. We will take all of the benefited receptors versus the cost of the wall to see if it turns out to be what's called cost reasonable. So right now, the current standard, it's $30 a square foot is what we have for the noise wall times the length of the wall. So you get your area length times height times $30 per square foot, and versus $42,000 per benefited receptors. So we look at all of the people that are going to get a benefit, multiply that by $42,000, look at the cost of the wall. If it's under that cost, then it's considered cost reasonable, and we move forward to build the wall.
Let me just ask you a question. Are there plans to build walls automatically, or it depends as you go along? Is it common to add walls as you go?
So we look at all that in the design. So we're going to look at everything at one time.
Okay, hi. I live in Century Village, and the community that I live in is on a road that parallels the Turnpike. There's already a wall, so when you're doing construction, how how are you going to take that wall down, put up another wall closer to where I live, and how is that going to impact me? I mean, I could almost touch the wall now.
Okay, so the wall that you're talking about, that's a neighborhood wall? Or it's a turnpike wall. So when we do the evaluation, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at whether that wall is working or not. I don't know the height of the wall right now. So if it's already, the maximum wall that we can build is 22 feet. So if there's a wall that's 22 feet, it's already maxed out. We can't build a wall higher than 22 feet.
During construction, without a wall to accommodate the extra lanes.
So let's just want to give some clarity. Are you on the east side or the west side?
West.
Her right here?
I live there too.
Oh, you live there. So she's saying east and east. Okay, you're on the west side. Okay, so right now, I just want to be clear. The intent of what we're looking is that we are going to be widening to the west. I just wanted to give that clarification so that for those that are on the east side right now, and again, we're going through the process and making sure that we can get to agreement with the utilities and the agencies that we're going to be the east side of the turnpike. So if you're going north on the east side, we're then widening to the west. Okay?
We can always touch it now.
Okay, understood.
Construction goes down and then it gets built again.
So if the wall that is not sufficient, and tell me if I'm incorrect in this. So if there's an existing wall, so again, we're gonna go through, once the design is setting all that in, Todd's team is gonna do the noise model that was shown. They then will identify where we need to have those barriers. And if there's an existing wall that doesn't work, then we would then have to construct a new wall.
However,
I wanted to know if you're widening and putting in more lanes, obviously that wall has to be moved.
okay, I think I understand what your question is. If that wall is on the right-of-way, so the wall is running along the right-of-way, if we're not acquiring any more right-of-way, then there's no reason to move the wall. So the lanes might be shifting, but there's no reason to remove the wall. The wall will just remain, and if it's 22 feet, that's as tall as we go, and it'll just stay. Yeah, the wall will just remain in place.
Regarding that same wall, and how many lanes it is.
Microphone.
How many lanes is it right now?
It's 6 lanes.
It's 6 lanes.
Yes, ma'am.
We had a bunch of trees. We had a bunch of trees that diffused the noise. We still heard the turnpike. We had to take the trees down because of FPL. We have no barrier between the wall and us. It's wide open. It's noisier now than it was before. And now if you make it to 10 lanes, with this wall up, it's going to be like living inside of the subway. Because the trees diffuse some of it. We're right on the power. The trees diffuse some of the noise. And now it's noisy because there are no trees. And if you increase, and besides that, wall is filthy, and thank you for making it cleaner.
I did it myself.
It's filthy, and it's a nice, but that's another for another day.
Are you answering that?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, so trees, unless trees provide what we call it's a visual barrier. If you don't see the traffic, you don't notice it as much, but in order for trees to actually have an audible difference in noise, it has to be about 100 feet thick of very tall, very dense vegetation. So what we will do is we will be reevaluating everything, and we'll look for impacts. And where there are impacts, we will try to put noise walls in there to mitigate those impacts.
Because with the windows open now, the cool air, it is noisy.
Understood. So
Our-
we
our
will be evaluating everything and looking to see where noise walls are reasonable, feasible.
I just have two quick questions. Is there a place where we can find out where our present number is for decibels?
No, because we haven't done the noise study yet.
Well, there was noise studies done in the past, right?
There were, but that was looking at a different situation. So when we look at noise, what we're looking at is what is going to be the design year with this project. So we would have looked at what is the 8 lanes going to do for this residence in this time period. So it's not a static of what your residence is. So we won't know what it's going to be with the 10 lanes.
This
So
gentleman said that his noise number was 65.5.
with that design.
I can't get a number like that for a car.
We can provide you what the PD&E noise study was for that, but it's not representative of what it will be with the 10.
I understand that, but I would like that. How do I?
Sure. We if you contact us, yeah, we can
Or they can email one.
yeah.
And just out of curiosity,
Sure.
what do you plan on, what is the construction mode for the canals that are so close to the turnpike as it is now? How are you going to get 10 lanes without doing something to the canals?
So that's some of the discussions that we've been having with Lake Worth Drainage District. And so we're looking at different options as far as, remember I said, so we're gonna have to kind of go into their right of way. So we're having some discussions with them as far as what does that look like. We're not filling the canals in completely because we have to still give them the same capacity. So you don't have to worry about flooding, right? So if that water is currently okay and we come in and put our widening project in, where's the water gonna go? So they require that as the turnpike is making an improvement, we still have to give them the same capacity. It may be a different design, there's different options that we're looking at, but we will provide that same drainage capacity that they currently have.
Since walls are so expensive and you're already building near where we live in Bellagio, what are you doing in the structure of the road to create less noise? Cement is noisier than blacktop. I mean, are you building anything in, any cushioning, any construction things that will help? Because you know full well the walls will be too expensive and they won't go up.
So right now, and again, we're evaluating, so it will not be concrete. That's like right now, we don't, when you look at the turnpike, we don't really, there's specific things that we use for concrete bridges, or if there's ramps where asphalt is not sufficient because of heavy truck volumes and things. From that standpoint, that's when we typically use concrete, because concrete costs a lot more money, right? So as far as the road, design of the road, and who knows in the next couple of years what innovative designs can be underway that will be considered and proposed by our consultant teams. But we're looking at all options from a design standpoint.
Teresa?
Yes.
Yes. I also live in Century Village, and I just have two quick questions. One, I understand the difference between lane shifting and increasing the total footprint of the turnpike. Should it be necessary to increase the total footprint? What protection do landowners, whether they be private or condo like we all have, against seizure or acquisition, if you like that word, of the space that's currently west of that wall? Is there a precedent on that? Does FDOT ever do that? I think in New York we used to call it eminent domain. I don't know if we have a Robert Moses down here, but if we do, we have to start worrying. And the other part of my question is, if our wall is maxed out, which I think it is there any choice of material, in other words, sound-absorbing material that could be added to the existing wall that would reduce noise levels? Thank you.
So as far as the question regarding right-of-way, so as we are looking at our design, we will determine whether or not if we need to enlarge our footprint. And at that time, we would then identify those parcels and we would begin coordination with those property owners at a certain specific part of the project. So at the public hearing, at that public hearing, we will have identified if we intend to acquire any right-of-way. So I cannot answer the question tonight because again, we're going through our design process and determining whether or not additional right-of-way is going to be needed or not. As far as eminent domain is concerned, statutorily, if needed, the Department of Transportation has that ability. However, that's not the intent that they're trying to take everybody's property, and it's the point of working together to be able to build the improvement that is needed and taking the least amount of right-of-way as possible.
And the absorbing material?
As far as the absorptive material for noise walls, we don't have anything right now where anything is added to the noise wall. So there's just not a standard for that right now.
Quick question, unless I misunderstood, you've talked about projects north of Glades Road. We've been told that there's a potential of a project that's going to cut our community right now, which is on the southern side of Glades. What community is that? Westlakes. Westlakes.
Yes, ma'am. Very familiar with West Lakes. I actually came and did a presentation with your board. So again, we're looking at alternatives, and the intent is not to split a community in half. So the alternative that you received from the information that you received showing that alternative, it was our design team looking at, we asked them to be innovative in their design efforts, and so they came up with a concept that would help traffic flow better from Glades. However, it would have had a tremendous impact socially, right, to the community. So as they're going through the Glades Road PD&E that I mentioned is starting off, when they're looking at those alternatives, they will then grade the alternatives accordingly as far as if it impacts tremendously, then that alternative will not move forward, right? Because we're grading them based upon benefit as well as the environmental impacts that will take place. So that process is starting, and again, you will have the opportunity when those alternatives are being presented, there will be a public workshop to present those alternatives, and then there will be a public hearing just like there will be for the Mainline.
And just specifically, what is that project number?
That project number, the PD&E is, I'm gonna find it for you and I'll give it to you before I leave because it's not my project, I'm coordinating with it. And so, but you can contact me and I can definitely give you the information.
Thank you.
We're going where?
Yeah, is this also about Westlakes?
Yes, definitely.
Hello, sir.
We meet again.
Yes, we do.
Okay, my name is Don Martin. I'm president of Westlakes, the Boca Raton. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Are you familiar where Westlakes is in Boca Raton in your area?
Yeah.
Right across the street.
Yeah.
Okay. You made a presentation
Yes, sir.
in June 18th
Yes,
or
sir.
28th.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you and the folks came up.
Yes, sir.
You gave us a nice slide presentation, but the option 10 would take Boca Raton and run it right through our community. I feel sorry for you people who are worried about noise, and I
just answered
feel with you, but we're worried about losing homes. It could take out 22 homes. And I have asked Teresa before with what's included in this packet, if you don't have it, is the emails.
I do, and I just answered your question.
Yeah, can you give
In other words, is option 10 still on there, which is to be presented when this meeting was supposed to happen last year, the PD&E was supposed to have been done last year. We haven't heard anything in 18 months. We're just hanging out there.
That's not.
Whether we're gonna have a home or not.
That's not.
Or are you gonna cut our community in half? I don't mean to be a little upset, but how many people here from Westlake?
Okay.
Right, you're talking about a senior community.
Understood. Can I have some answers?
Okay.
Thank you. And I don't know if you're being fair.
One other thing, I just want to have a little better line of communication. You've had that letter for almost a year. You never made any kind of a contact with us. And I kind of went back on what you ran on. And one of the things, we're a senior community, one of the things you ran on was protecting the senior citizens in your district. Okay? I'm sorry if I'm offending. We're still friends.
This is not, when we receive information, concerns about the Turnpike, obviously I can't answer them for me or on behalf of the state, which is why we brought them together and which is why we're here today. It took some time. These folks do not live here. They came from other parts of the state. It took a long time to organize. So here we are, and I think that Teresa answered your question, that there is no decision made yet, and as soon as some options are on the table, they will be presented to your community.
Been a year and a half since we heard anything.
Okay,
That's not, we've responded.
I don't think, listen, I don't know what to say. I'm not here to defend FDOT, I'm not here to defend Atkins, I'm here to present the information to the community. I don't think it's a particularly fair attack on me and what I ran on. I've only been in office a year, but besides that, here we are presenting the information to the community, and you have all of their numbers now. I can't answer the questions for you.
You can't answer them.
They have the answers. I am not obviously in control of the Turnpike plans. No state representative, state senator, congressman, or anyone is. So here we are.
We sent letters from the governor on down.
I
We all
understand.
focused on.
I understand. And so they're giving you, they do not have the information yet. So you have their numbers and their emails, and you can communicate with them directly, and that is what I'm providing you today. I obviously cannot give you an answer. I don't know the answer. So let's move on to,
No, bottom
yeah,
line, we'd like to open up a line of communication, if you will.
you have all of my phone numbers and emails and information. So I'm going to let her respond, and then we're going to move on to another topic. And I see people from other communities like Whispering Pines over there.
So
Okay, Whisper Wall. Sorry, Whisper Wall. I apologize. That's a school in our district.
So
Everybody take down the temperature.
I just want to make sure everybody is clear with, as far as Glades Road is concerned. And we've responded to every single email, every letter. We've responded to everything that has been sent to the Turnpike. We have responded. And again, so the process, I apologize if it's taken longer than what we thought it was going to at the time when we met. We communicated the information that we knew at that time. So I apologize that it has taken longer than what we intended. But again, we cannot do any improvements along that road without public involvement. And so what I stated before is that the PD&E, the Project Development and Environmental Study for the Glades Road interchange has started. It started in October. So that is coming along. They're going to look at alternatives. Once those alternatives have been evaluated internally with the Turnpike team, there's going to be a kickoff like newsletter that's going to be sent out. We're doing the Glades Road PD&E study. That's letting you know that it started, that there's going to be a public informational workshop that's going to take place, okay? You will have an opportunity to come to that workshop, see what those alternatives are, okay? Those alternatives will then be, you'll have an opportunity to talk, and then probably 6 to 7 months after that meeting, there will then be a public hearing for whatever the alternative is going to be at Glades Road. So we cannot do any improvements without going through that process. So hopefully everybody is clear. So we're going to go to the back because we've got to give other people an opportunity to ask questions.
Come back. There's some folks in Mr. Walk.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the people who arranged this meeting. It's very helpful. We live in Whisper Walk, and the group here is from Summerwind, which is the association most affected by the noise at the Turnpike, because we abut the Turnpike. 9 years ago, we had all kinds of studies, sound studies, done in our area. And the head of the Florida Department of Transportation told us in these words that if the Turnpike is ever expanded, and there are plans to do it now, this was 9 years ago, remember, that you will be the first to get the sound wall. And we're talking about an area from Yamato Road to Clinton. That is the area that we're concerned with. And we were I want to know if the Department of Transportation has a record of this.
So, as far as a record of somebody saying something like that, we don't have anything like that. I don't know where that was said. If you could provide like what meeting, we can take a look at the meeting minutes for sure. But let me explain the process though. So when we do a noise study, noise walls are built as part of a project. So if there isn't a project, we don't build the noise walls. There has to be a project. So at that time, we were looking at a project for an 8-lane widening, and had that 8-lane widening gone through, noise walls would have been built for that 8-lane widening project at that time. However, it was shown that we needed to go to a 10-lane widening. So that's where we are right now. Is now we're looking at the 10-lane widening. And when that project goes to design, we will look at noise walls for that project, and they will be built as part of that project. So as far as like somebody saying that a noise walls will be built for one place before another, we don't build them for one person before another. They're built as part of the project. So when that project goes through, noise walls will be built. And where we can, if there are noise walls that are on the right of way as opposed to shoulder, you've seen the noise walls before that are sometimes right on the shoulder. They can only be built 14 feet high at the most. If they're going over a bridge on a structure, they can only be built 8 feet high. They're cast in place, so they have to be built with the road. Unlike the right-of-way noise barriers, the ones that go up to 22 feet, sometimes we can go ahead and build those before we start the widening, which is great for the communities behind there when it's feasible to do that, because then they can build the noise walls first and then do the widening. But that has to be coordinated with things like the drainage, the canals, all the gas lines, all the things that that they have to look at in between there. So when this 10-lane concept does go to design, and does get through, and we are ready to construct, where we've identified 22-foot right-of-way barriers, we can definitely look at trying to put those in first. Does that clarify a little bit of the process and what we're looking at? You're very welcome.
Hi. We live in Boca, which is on Boca Rio Road. So there's a canal there and a turnpike.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How is that going to be changed?
We don't go there.
The turnpike, I believe, is a little bit elevated.
Correct. So that's the Glades. So when we talk about the Glades Road interchange, the PD&E study, we're looking at all of that. So I cannot answer that question for you right now. That's the PD&E study that just kicked off, and we'll have that public workshop. We'll show you what that alternative is. We're going to show you if it's elevated, what you're going to be looking at, and things of that nature. So I can't answer that.
That could be completely taken away and reconstructed with the road and everything.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Is a wall, is it possible for a wall to be built on something that's elevated? Sorry. Is it possible for a sound wall to be built on something that's elevated?
And that's what he talked about. So if there's a structure like a bridge,
yeah,
and when he does his analysis, you know, then he can build 8 feet on a bridge, or if it's on the shoulder, then you can build up to 14 feet. So it's the point of that he's gonna run the analysis and determine how to mitigate it.
If it makes sense to do so. With the noise wall, it's either going to be more effective near the source, in which case you can be shorter, like an 8-foot wall, or it's more effective nearest the receiver, which would be the residence, which is the 22-foot. So when you have the source, which is the traffic, if you have it close to it, you can go shorter because it's bouncing back. Whereas it's spreading out, so you get the 22-foot barriers towards the right-of-way. So it just depends on what the modeling shows on, when it comes to bridges, of whether an 8-foot on a bridge is going to be effective or not. It's something we just have to evaluate.
Okay, thank you.